Morning. How's everybody doing? You all right? Hey, I got a question to ask you. I want to know who here likes games, likes competitions. Yeah. You know, the thing is, to be honest with you, I'm not very competitive. I just like to win. You know. Beth and I were chatting the other day about which one of us laughs more. You know, I laughed more. So anyway, we just win. That's it. You know, so let's try that again. Raise your hand for me or put something in the chat. If you like games, if you like competitions, there we go. See, the true competitors in the room are bang like this even before you can finish the question, right? You're like, poof, I'm there. So cool. Yeah, good morning, welcome. It's good to know it. Good to know who the winner is. There we go, Gail, you were clearly the winner every single time. So if you want to know who not to play games with, now we know. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun playing games and doing that stuff. You know, but there is a competition in life which is a bit different than other competitions because you might be competing against someone and not even know it. They might not even know it. That's what's so weird about it. See, when we do other competitions, if you're playing a board game or a card game, or even if you're doing something athletic, you're running or boxing, or even playing darts, you know what I mean? You know who you're like competing against. It's that other individual and he or she is there playing with you. But there's actually a competition in life that a lot of us play, and the other person or the other people or the other group might not even know or care that you're competing with them. It's true, but it's weird. And the thing that does that, which is something that resides in all of us, is this thing called envy. Some people call it jealousy or envy. So this thing, envy, is the thing that we do towards others, and we compete against others, and actually some of them don't even care. You know, you look at somebody's life on social media and you're flicking through your phone and you see what their life is like and you think, oh, if only my life was like theirs. And that person doesn't even know that you're looking at their life and thinking you wish you could be like them. You don't even know them. They don't even know you. You could be looking at some absolute stranger's post about what they had for breakfast and you could think, oh, all I have is porridge. Or whatever, yeah? And you have this competition with somebody that we don't even know who it is. The definition of envy is this: feeling discontented or resentful because someone else's possessions, qualities, or good favor. People might say, oh, they're just so lucky. That could be good favor, you know? So when you feel discontented or resentful because of somebody else, that's the definition of envy. And we've been doing a series about emotions this last month. Last week, Sam spoke on anger. If you haven't yet watched that one or caught up, you can do that on our YouTube channel. You can catch up on all of our messages. I spoke about sadness. Christopher spoke about fear. So this whole month we've been looking at emotions. Emotions, we all have emotions. Emotions are totally cool, totally important, and emotions color our lives. We believe that emotions should color our life, not control our life. Because some of us know, like, we have experienced emotions, fear so much so that fear controls us and we don't make decisions or we don't know what to do. Or we've had sadness which is so heavy and strong that it sucks the joy out of every moment of life. And so we've been looking at different emotions, and if you've missed any of them, as I say, please go back and catch up. Today is the last session on our emotions series. And one thing we've been saying is you can't help having emotions, but we believe we can help you with your emotions. You should have emotions. In fact, if you don't have emotions, it usually is because something, it's a condition. Maybe it's a byproduct of medication. It could be a byproduct of circumstances, or you're nurturing, or another. So to not have emotions is actually classed as a condition. So you should have emotions, and emotions are good. And if you've ever been told or felt like your emotions are wrong, we want you to know that God made you that way. God made you with emotions. That's how your life is made full of color, and he made you to have emotions. And see, this is true whether you're a Jesus follower or not, because he created you that way. And today we're going to look at this thing of envy. And what happens with envy is when, for most of us, or when it rises up, they'll describe a couple ways that it comes up. It could be that you look at some individuals, or you look at some group of people, and you look at what they did and what they've got. That's usually what it ends up being. They're able to do something that you'd like to do, or they've got something that you'd like to have. That's usually where it kind of comes up in our lives. It could be something tangible. They do something like, oh wow, they did something really good because they've gone on a specific type of holiday, or they did something like that, and you just think, oh, I wish I could do that type of thing. Or maybe the thing they do is like a skill, so they're very, they're a good painter or something. They could have a skill. They could do something in that way. Or it's something that they have. So rather than something that they do, it could be something they have. It could be their clothing. It could be their car. It could be their house. It could be their phone. It doesn't matter what it is. So most of us, we have this thing rise up in us when we look at what other people can do or what other people have. And that's where envy can rise up in our hearts. It pops up also in this way, like when you see somebody fail, and your first response is, yes. Now, I know somebody who might have been in an office setting where some precocious, obnoxious staff member failed. And this person I know might have felt on the inside, just maybe somebody might have felt on the inside, yes, they finally got what was coming to them. Or sometimes when other people fail, we can sort of feel happy. Maybe that's only this person I know and not somebody that you would know at all, right? But sometimes in our hearts, there's this capacity when somebody else, fails, if our first response is, yeah. And the other thing it does is it can make us feel better about ourselves because we feel better. And so what envy does, envy sort of churns this thing out. And all of our effort is because it's external, because we look at what other people can do or what other people have, or when other people have something that we don't like or can do something that we can't do and they fail at it, we feel better. Envy is all external. The effort is totally external. There's this guy, we got to go back in time now. There's this guy named Solomon, and Solomon was a king in Israel, and he was known as the wisest guy that ever lived. And he wrote some stuff down. We have a recording of his sayings. And the book of the Bible is actually a whole collection of books. And the whole timeline of the Bible was written over 1,500 years, so it's not just one book that one guy sat down or one lady sat down and wrote. It's a collection of different authors in different languages from different times. And when people say the Bible, it's actually, they're kind of talking about this one thing, which is the Bible, but in reality, it's like a library. It's 66 different books. And one of these 66 books, or two of these 66 books, were written primarily by this dude, Solomon, who was the king. And they're like wisdom books. One of the books is called Proverbs. It's like Proverbs in life. He wrote that one. And another book called Ecclesiastes. And he wrote these two books. And he wrote some sayings that you might have heard, and you might not even be a follower of Jesus, and yet you've heard some of these things, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that was in the Bible. He wrote this thing called, he said, death and life are in the power of the tongue. But basically, your words can hurt, your words can harm, or your words can heal. We've probably heard that. We've probably heard something to that effect, whether or not we're a follower of Jesus or not. He said, lazy people roll over in their beds because they say, I can't get up today. There might be a lion in the street. It's the same kind of thing that we might say today. There's lazy people that make excuses for doing something which might never happen. He wrote those kind of things. He also wrote this gem: it's better to live in the desert than in a house with a quarrelsome wife. Better to hide in the corner than spend time with a nagging wife, he wrote. So anyway, he wrote lots of things. But he also said this. He wrote this, and it's in Proverbs, and he wrote this. He said, envy rots your bones. Envy rots the bones. Which kind of changes the perspective of what's going on with envy. Because all of our effort is external. What people can see that we do or see that we have, that's our effort. But the effect of envy is internal. He writes, envy will rot your bones. It'll rot your soul. It'll rot something inside you. It affects you. It actually affects you inside. You're doing all this stuff out here, but the issue's in here. See, the real issue for all of us, really, the matter of the heart, is really the heart of the matter. It's what goes on our inside. That's where the real issue is. And so think about, so what effect does envy have on us? And if you're comparing yourself to others, and you're scrolling through those social media feeds or whatever you're doing, looking at their lives and seeing how they're better, you know what it can do to you? It can actually drag you down. You can become depressed because you look at someone else's things that they have. You look at what else they've got and how else it's working. It could be something sort of intangible, not like a specific item, like a brand new car, but it could be the fact that it seems like their relationships are just better. Their children seem better behaved. They seem to not get sick as often. I don't know why that they can afford their bills. It just seems like somehow it could be something about this individual or these people, and you just think, if only I could be like them. Wow, they always seem to have nice friendships. I'm at home on my own or something. You can have something that what it does to us is it actually drags us down. It can cause us to, use the word depressed. It can bring us down. And the other thing I alluded to a moment ago is it not only can do that, but the other thing that can happen on the inside of you is you can become arrogant. Because in this competition, in this game that you're winning, as soon as other people fail and you think you're doing better than them, it makes you feel better than them. Envy raises its ugly head in different ways. Because maybe some of us feel like we are better than other people. And in our competition of always wanting to be the number one or the top dog or better than the other or look better than the other or have nicer feeds because we always know how to take better photographs and we know what filters to use and what trim and edit and cut and what to make things look better. We know how to make it look like everything's perfect because we want to always put on a perfect perception, because when we put out that perfect perception, we feel better about ourselves because in reality we're competing, but we want to win. And so it can make us feel arrogant and make us feel superior than others. And there's another thing that can happen, and what happens is when we're always looking at others, what they can do or what they have, and you're sort of going back and forth, what happens is that you get distracted because instead of having a fixed purpose, you're just comparing yourself. And envy can distract us. Envy causes us to look elsewhere rather than to go forward with what we're called to do. You can never become the person you're called to be if you're always comparing yourself to somebody else. Jordan Peterson said that the only person you should compare yourself with is you yesterday. Compare yourself with the you from yesterday. Has your heart changed from yesterday? Are you becoming a kinder person from yesterday? The mistakes you made yesterday, did you learn from them? The only person to compare yourself with is the you from yesterday. Of course, we look to other people for inspiration, but we don't look to other people for imitation. We can be inspired by the biographies, the lives of other people, of course, be inspired by other people. But we don't compare ourselves to the point where we feel depressed or arrogant. That's the difference. Of course, we should be inspired by people. And we all have this capacity. We all have it. It's just the human heart, and that's a tension to keep an eye on. And I know this is easy to say. And when Solomon also writes about it, and when he writes about it, he gives us this thing that I think will help us, because we believe, we should all have emotions, and we want to help you with your emotions. And Solomon writes this, and it's in Ecclesiastes. Remember the other book I said that he writes with wisdom stuff? And Ecclesiastes isn't just little one-liners, it's a bit more, they're little bit longer passages. And he wrote this in Ecclesiastes. He says, I saw that all the toil or hard work, I saw that all the toil and achievement is driven from one person's envy of another. And then he says, it's meaningless. He says it's meaningless. And here's the bit that I think will be helpful for us, because he doesn't stop there when he says it's meaningless. He carries on and he says, it's just like chasing after the wind. Just like chasing. That'll keep you on your toes, won't it? If you want to know what that one's related to, go back a couple weeks on YouTube and find the sadness message. It was just like chasing after the wind. Andy Stanley says this. He says, how can you chase after the wind? There's never a finish line. There's never a finish line. You chase after the wind, you run, you strive, you work harder, you press, you push, you go. You're chasing after the wind for something that we cannot catch, that will not have a finish line. It's another way. Solomon is just using the language, the words there, to just help us understand through a mental picture. It's a total waste of your time. He says it's meaningless. It's as effective as chasing the wind. Catch it, go, run, catch it, go for it, go, chasing the wind. And we find ourselves feeling discontented or resentful because of somebody else. Solomon says that's just a waste of your time. It's a waste of your energy. It's a waste of your passion. It's a waste of your creativity. It's meaningless. It's like chasing the wind. When you divert your energy and divert your ability into just comparing yourself to somebody else, he says it's just a waste. It's sucking the life out of you to live that way. It sucks the life out of you. That's what he's saying. We find ourselves thinking, if only I had, if only we had, if only we could, if only. It just wastes life. It's a waste of your life. That's what Solomon's saying. He's just like, you're chasing the wind. You're chasing the wind here. You're chasing the wind. I asked at the beginning if we liked competitions. Solomon's saying that's a game that we don't need to play because there's no winner. There's no finish line. You'll never win at that game. And we said at the beginning as well, alluded to the idea that you're competing against other people who may even have no idea that you're competing against them. Because you just look at them from a distance and you think, I wish I was more like them. I wish I was more like them. Could even be a colleague, could be a friend, could be a family member, someone that you know, and they don't even know that you're competing with them. And for some of us, we could actually be competing against somebody who's no longer alive. Maybe you had a really demanding parent. Maybe you had someone in your life, a carer, a teacher, somebody that in your life was quite formative. And you feel like you can never live up to the standard or the expectation that they had for you or put on you. And they might not even still be alive, and yet you're still competing because there's this narrative in your heart, there's this narrative in your mind that just drives you, and you feel like you're never good enough. You're never enough. You'll never make it. You're never quite there. And no matter what you do or how hard you try, you feel more like a failure because it's never enough, and you compete against this person, and he or she might not even still be alive anymore. That's why Solomon says to live this way rots us from the inside out. This kind of stuff sucks the life out of us. And he says, hey, this game is totally pointless. It's just like chasing after the wind. And it's a mental picture to help us. It will never win at that. Now, the thing that I think we need to do as we begin to move, so how do we deal with this? I mean, we don't want to do that, but the answer isn't do nothing, right? The answer isn't do nothing in life. So, okay, well, I'm not going to compete against others. I'm not going to do that. The answer isn't become lazy somehow. The answer is actually, I think we should learn to run our own race. So the first thing that happens is we have to learn to stop chasing the wind, and then we have to learn to run our own race. That's really, I think that's the helpful thing. When we feel those feelings coming up in our hearts, we have to realize, hang on a minute, this is pointless. This is a waste of my time, a waste of my energy. And maybe you need to stop following certain people on social media. Maybe you need to cancel certain subscriptions. Maybe you need to decide, I'm going to stop looking at these things because what they do is they make me feel worse about myself. And maybe you just need to say, you know what? I'm not going to do that because it's taking my time, it's taking my energy. I need to just stop it. And it's just like chasing the wind. So I need to stop chasing the wind. I don't know, maybe you'll know for yourself. You'll know if that's what you need to do in your life. Or maybe I need to stop chasing the wind. And once we stop chasing the wind, the answer is do nothing. The answer is start to run your own race. Run your own race. See, envy can be that catalyst which helps pull us back on track. Run your own race. It's okay to do well in life. It's okay to want to be successful. You want to be the best person in the office. You want to be the top salesperson. You want to be whatever it is in your life, whatever you've got, go for it. That's cool. Go for it. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do those things. Go for it. Do it. If you're able to earn a lot of money and that's what you want to do, go for it. That's fine. Doesn't make you a better person. Doesn't make you a worse person. If that's how you're wired, go for it. You can be successful. We shouldn't be lazy people. But instead of worrying about somebody else's race, I should focus on my own. I should focus on the race that I'm called to run. Instead of competing against other people who might not even know I'm competing against them, I should run my own race. My own race. See, Paul writes this. Paul was this guy in the later years, and he was this guy that was a total church hater. And then he actually had this encounter with Jesus, and Jesus transformed his life around, and he became a church follower. And he wrote these letters to a whole bunch of churches around the Mediterranean, and you could look it up. You can go visit some of the places. Paul was a real person who lived at a real time in real places. And Paul writes this letter, and he wrote to these people in Corinth. So there's the name, Corinthians. So in 1 Corinthians 9:24, he says, in a race, everybody runs. Everybody runs in a race. Only one person gets the prize. So he's practical. We've talked about this before, haven't we? He's totally practical. Someone's going to win. But you run your race to win. You might not be the winner. That's okay. You still run your race. You might not cross that finish line first, second, or third. You might not place on the podium. Doesn't matter. Paul says, you run your race to win. Instead of worrying about someone else's race, focus on your own. Instead of worrying about someone else's responsibilities, focus on your own. Run your race to win. Run your race to win. And one person might win, might not be you. You know, when I was younger, I was on a swim team. I don't know, anyone here ever on a swim team before? So you got these swim things, and you eat meat, and you have so many early mornings of swimming in cold water. So we swam for a couple years on a swim team. I will not show you any photos from that, for sure. Many years of being on a swim team, and you line up and do all the diving and the turns and all that kind of stuff. And then we're in the swim meets, and you sort of like it pulls down to whoever's the fastest person, doesn't it? You compete in one heat, and then there's another heat, and another heat, and another heat, and they take the fastest ones from these races, and they put them together, and it's a big board where like your times get posted. And you can see pretty easily, quite quickly, you can see really quickly who's slower and who's faster. You can't you? In some races you'd go into because I'd seen the times before that had been posted, and so I would know in this next heat, I'm probably going to at least make it to the next round because I know average speed is faster than the other people. But there's other times when because I wasn't actually that good, so after a while, I would not end up being the champion at all. And you could see as the times get posted, actually, I'm probably not going to make it to the next round. So just imagine if somebody's swimming, and we've all been to a pool, or at least seen it, and they have the lanes, right? They've got the markers on the lanes. And if you're trying to swim and you're swimming, you know what you don't do when you're swimming? Yeah? You don't look, you can't keep looking at the person beside you because you're not supposed to race in their lane. You can only race in your lane. And even if I know, I might not actually tap that wall first or second or third. The challenge is for me in my heart to run my race the darn best that I can do. Because my race is not their race. My race is not their race. My race is my race. And Paul says, your race is your race. It doesn't matter what the other individual is doing, and he or she might be better or faster or more skilled or more whatever than you. That doesn't matter. You do what you're called to do to the best of your ability, and you go for it. You just give it your all. Do your best with what you got. You might not get the highest score in that class. You might not be the top person for those exams. So what? What you do is do your best with what you got. Do your best to the ability that you've got. Go for it. Go for it. This is what he's saying. Go for it. Go for it. He carries on and he says in 9:26, he says, run towards the goal with purpose. See, you're running to win. You're not aimless. Run towards the goal with purpose. 1 Corinthians 9:26, you run towards the goal with purpose, not aimless. And he gives another athletic illustration. You know, a boxer actually goes into the ring to win. There's no point in boxing in the air. Could you imagine if we see Tyson Fury, bell goes, he jumps in, and the other guy squares up against him, and Tyson just stands there going like boxing at nothing? Stupid, isn't it? It's a bit like chasing the wind. Totally pointless. He says when the boxer gets in the ring, the boxer fights to win. There's no point boxing the air. Whatever you're called to do in life, he's just kind of saying, go for it. Go for it. With the strength and ability, whatever you've got, go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Stay in your lane, run your race. You can't run someone else's race. You can only run your own. There's another quote from Andy Stanley. He says, as a follower of Jesus, you'll never experience God's purpose for your life if you're always distracted by God's purpose for somebody else. You'll never discover God's purpose for your life if you're always distracted by God's purpose for someone else's life. If you're not a follower of Jesus, another way to put it is you'll never find your purpose in life if you're just distracted by someone else's purpose. There's certain things that are for you to do. And Paul knows this isn't easy. I'm saying it and maybe it sounds easy. It's not easy. And Paul carries on. The next thing he says, the very next verse he says in 9:27, he says, he says on 9:27, like an athlete, I punish my body, working hard and training to do what it should. I've given you the wrong verse there. If you've got your Bible or your phone, you can look it up. He says, like an athlete, you punish your body, working hard and training to do what it should and not what it wants. So, has anybody here ever run a marathon? One person. Marathons are hard to do. Yeah, I've not run them. I know, I've heard they're hard to do. You can't just decide tomorrow morning to run a marathon. Now if I ask the question, how many of us, if we trained and worked hard at it, we could probably complete a marathon? Actually, you don't even have to run the whole thing. You could walk a marathon. But you could complete 26 miles. You could do it. Not because you try, but because you train. Not because you try, but because you train. See, there's a difference between trying and there's a difference between training. And that's what Paul went on to say in that verse that I obviously screwed up and gave the wrong slide. In that verse, he says, I punish my body like an athlete, work hard and training it to do what it should do and not what it wants to do. Training. There's a difference between trying and training. The issue is not that you try, the issue is whether or not you're training. We have to stop trying to be envious, and we have to train our hearts to not be envious. We have to stop trying to be jealous and train our hearts not to be jealous, to train our hearts to recognize, okay, I am just chasing the wind. I'm just being distracted. I'm just swimming and I'm not even really know what I'm doing. You have to train your heart. You have to train your heart to be focused, to find your purpose, to be focused. It's not about trying to stop this or trying to stop that. It's actually about training yourself to stop. Now, if anyone's ever had any addiction recovery, you know that it's more than just trying. It's good to try, but you have to do more than try. You have to learn to think differently. You have to learn to put yourself in different situations. You might have to cut certain relationships off. You might have to do certain things differently. And it's not easy because you're training yourself to do something that your body doesn't want to do. You're working hard like an athlete who's getting ready to run a marathon, because we can't wake up tomorrow morning and run a marathon. But we could wake up tomorrow morning and start training. There's a difference between trying and training, and this is what Paul is saying. As an athlete, work hard, run your race, the race that you're called to run. You might not get first place. Only one person is going to get first place, but run your race to win. He says it's not easy. So therefore, like an athlete, I have to work hard and train my body to do what it doesn't want to do. No. That's what is the issue. As we learn to, I want to help us learn to control envy in our hearts. And it takes time. It takes work, doesn't it? It's not easy. Maybe you know this because, you know, there's a point in a relationship where the honeymoon period goes away. You know, you might have experienced that. And whether they're friendships or work colleagues or more of a romantic relationship, the novelty wears off. And you know that you have to guard your heart and work in your heart. You have to train it, don't you? You have to train it to learn to behave and to do things in a different way. And training takes time. Training takes commitment. And as you can't help having emotions, but we can help you with your emotions. We can encourage you as you're learning and growing and working and training and discovering what it is. And it takes time, recognizing when it creeps into our lives. Because Solomon reminds us that envy rots the bones, so if it does infect us, it affects us inside. And it affects our lives, and it actually ruins relationships. I don't know if you've ever had a friendship or a relationship with someone who was incredibly jealous. It ruins the relationship eventually, doesn't it? It just does. It rots you from the inside out. Envy rots the bones. And instead of us rotting from the inside out, I can't help but think of zombies, but anyway, instead of us being like zombies, God's heart is to see you thrive. Now, you might not be a follower of Jesus. You might be here this morning, you might be watching online, and this is like, okay, this is kind of, interesting, helpful stuff for life. But more than all of this helpful information, the thing I would like you to remember most of all is that God wants to help you thrive. He says in his book called John, one of the things that was written about him, it says, I came to give you life so you could have life to the full. I came to help you thrive. God's purpose for your life is not to tell you off, to tell you how horrible you are, to tell you how much mistakes you make, to tell me how rotten you are. His goal in his life is to see you thrive. Wants to help you thrive. He wants to help you thrive so much so that he gave his own son to come to earth as a baby, Jesus. He gave his son to help show us how to live, to show us how much he cared for us, to show us how much he wanted to help us thrive. It says that he didn't send his son to condemn the world, but to rescue the world. God is for you, not against you. His purpose and his heart is to see you thrive. And so out of all of this whole series, more than anything, the thing I'd like us all to know and remember most of all is God's purpose for your life is to see you thriving. Thriving doesn't mean you're always number one in the race. Thriving means I'm comfortable and confident giving my best for my race, regardless of what position I finish in. That's contentment. Giving my best and knowing that I've given my best. That's contentment. That's peace, isn't it? And to know that even if you finish last in the race, it doesn't change the way he feels about you. Because only one person wins the race, right? It's okay if you don't win the race. You just run your race to win. You give your best. Know that you've given your best. Not comparing with other people. You've given your best. That's peace. That's contentment. Because otherwise what happens is we get robbed. We look on our social media and we see someone else's holiday, and the time that you have by yourself or with your family or with your children or with your friends is robbed because what that moment could have been is robbed because you compared it with someone else's. It robs us. Knowing that you can have peace in those moments is thriving. Jesus wants to help you thrive. More than anything else, we want to see you thrive. And I want to see all of us free from envy. I want to see us free from being depressed because someone else has something better than us, or arrogant because we're better than other people, or distracted because we miss our race. I want to see us thrive. I want to see us thrive. And each of us is called to a race. Your race is different than my race. My race is different than your race. The person sitting next to you has a different race than your race. I don't know what your race is, but we all have a race. An individual race. And I want to see you training hard. I don't know what your race is, but you know what it is, and maybe you know in that environment, I need to work hard at this. Go for it. That's cool. Go for it. Because I want you to run your race with every possibility of being the winner. Run your race to win. Go for it. I don't know what it is or what you've got that you're facing, but go for it. Go for it. Give it your all. Whatever your lane is, stay in your lane and just go for it. Go for it. And let's cheer one another on. Let's applaud one another as we work hard and train and go for it. Cool. We're going to close in prayer. Just finished here now. But I just want to pray for you. And we've wrapped up this whole series. And if you missed any of these, please catch them online. But more than anything, we want you to know that God is for you. He made you with emotions. You are made in a colorful way because God is colorful, and he made us to be able to feel these different things and express these different things. His heart is for you, and he wants to see you thriving in life. Let's just pray. God, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for everything that you're doing. God, thank you that you made us this way. And you're so good, you did it for us, even for those who don't even know who you are or even care who you are, feel that they're indifferent or angry at you. God, you actually made us with the capacity to feel different things, whether we recognize that it's come from you or not. You gave us that gift of emotions. Thank you for that. And God, helpful for the encouraging picture that when we get stuck in envy, it destroys something on the inside. Help us to remember that when it creeps up again. Help us to run our race. Help us to focus on the things that we've got ahead of us. God, I just pray specifically for everybody watching or everybody here in the room, God, that they would find their purpose. God, that they would be encouraged and strengthened in whatever they've got to do, that whatever they find to do, they would give it their all. Thank you that you are for us and not against us. Thank you that you are just cheering us on and wanting us to learn. We thank you that you do that because you love us and that you gave your Son for us. Father, we just commit all of our time to you. In your name we pray. Amen. Hey, next week we've got a guest speaker and we're going to kick off a new series. He's going to be looking at wrestling. He's going to be looking at wrestling with God and what it had to do with like wrestling with doubts and stuff like that. So if you feel like that would be a helpful thing to be part of, then please come. If you're on holiday, because it is the start of the half-term week, some of you are like, woohoo! Some of you are like, oh, great, I've got the kids all day. So whatever you've got going on this week, have an amazing week. We've still got some time. We don't need to pick up our children, our superstars, till 12. So if you've got time, you want to hang out a bit, feel free to just hang out here, grab another coffee, say hello to somebody. So we've still got some time before 12 if you want to hang out for a bit. But yeah, otherwise have an amazing, amazing week. See ya.